Okay, good morning. Welcome to our panel on challenging faces of nonprofits. All the people on the panel are directors of programs, and they're going to answer some questions about different challenges that they face in their programs, and then we're going to open it up to some questions from you guys and see what you guys have problems with. So here to my left is Natasha Smith, and she's from Working in the Schools. And next to her is Jen Sontag, and she is from East Village Youth Program. And at the end is Phil Jackson from the Black Star Project. So the way I'm going to set this up for you guys is that I'll kind of take turns who goes first with each question. And I won't make you go first the first time.
Okay, thank you.
That's not where we're at. So the first question is, what are your biggest struggles in managing an NPO? And what do you do to overcome them? So Phil, I'm going to start with you.
One of the biggest struggles is getting the community, getting the media, getting the funders to understand the value of not-for-profit organizations. A lot of people don't really understand the value that we add to community, to the city. We consider ourselves necessary infrastructure to the communities in which we serve. And it's almost like some people consider us nuisances or annoyances. And so, is that yours? And so, we look at the work that we do much like the work that the police department does. That is absolutely necessary, but it's so hard to get other people, agencies, government agencies and foundations to view us in that way. And a part of that is our fault, because sometimes we act like not-for-profits rather than essential infrastructures.
Jen?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I completely agree with Phil. I think that's a really, really good answer. I think that understanding the value of nonprofit organizations is a real challenge. My answers were more sort of on a personal basis. So some of the things that I had thought about that were real challenges personally for me as the executive director are obviously fundraising, which is number one concern, I think, for every organization out there, not just nonprofits, sales, corporations, making money. So that's our biggest challenge. In addition to that, I think staff management is really hard, and you're trying to do all of this other things, where you're putting out fires, you're trying to bring money in, and now you have this entire staff that you have to manage, evaluate, delegate, balance, being liked versus being a leader, that type of thing. So that's a really big challenge, I think, personally for me. And the other thing is just the responsibility of managing an organization. Dealing with emergency situations, flooding, security issues, midnight alarm calls, managing the fact that you have an entire organization of students who really need and deserve your program, who don't have anywhere else to go. And if you're not there, then they won't be able to find those services. So the responsibility of that, the responsibility of dealing with a building, if you're renting or if you own, regardless of which one you have, it's still dealing with building management, dealing with a landlord, utilities, maintenance, supplies, and also, of course, the board of directors, which is also one of my biggest challenges on getting along, making sure everybody's on the same page, making sure everybody's doing their part. So those are personally my biggest challenges in managing this organization.
So I'll have to agree with both what Jen and Phil said, and I think that part of that is a challenge in nonprofit or NPO work is establishing infrastructure to actually support exactly what Jen was talking about, and then being able to have that strong infrastructure so that NPOs actually are able to be seen in terms of the value. A lot of times we are, as a nonprofit organization, seen as sort of little small mom-and-pop shops because we operate that, but we need to really have a good way of developing an infrastructure so that we have strong development, strong operations, strong board development, strong staff management, and even professional performance management with staff, so that we have a base to be able to really operate and provide the service to whoever we are serving. And that there then kind of allows for communities, cities, government to see the value of the work that nonprofits do, because it's no longer just that one little thing, that there's an established system that is actually operating so that the people who are doing the work understand why it's so important to make sure that the work that's being done for the client, so to speak, or the young person or the senior, that actually then becomes more the work and not necessarily all the other stuff that needs to happen, but that there's a strong infrastructure there in place to make that happen, and that the value then becomes overshines just sort of the operational things that need to happen. So.
Okay. All right, the next question. This one is one that is a challenge for myself, and I didn't introduce myself. I'm Jordan Hesterman, and I run a nonprofit also called Becoming with People. And so I asked them, how do you manage to get everything accomplished with a small staff or no staff, and or depending on your volunteers? And how do you deal with not getting everything done? Because I think that's a big part of one of my challenges, is I always have the ongoing list that never gets finished, and things keep getting added to it. So I figured that was probably a challenge for them as well. All right, Jen, why don't you start with this one?
And I realized I didn't really tell you anything about my organization, so just for 5 seconds, I'm going to tell you what we do. I run an organization called East Village Youth Program. We're a nonprofit after-school college readiness program. We work with primarily Latino students, but we accept students from all over the city of Chicago. We're located on the northwest side, Milwaukee and Belmont. And we work with high school students and college students. We provide, help them get into college, and then we provide a college scholarship as well. So how do we get everything accomplished is the question, right? You don't. And that's the answer. You don't. And you have to make peace with that at some point. You know, you have to prioritize. And it's hard when you're either taking over as executive director, program director, whatever. It's really hard because you know, if you're the type of person that will not feel settled or normal until everything in your inbox is complete, then this won't be a good place to be, because it's really, really challenging. So you have to prioritize emergency management. Funding is number one, keeping the doors open, paying the bills, paying the staff, number one. And at the end of the day, you won't get everything accomplished, and you just have to be okay with that. There's some stuff that's not going to get done. But that being said, I would also say hiring staff or maintaining staff that are really, really smart and can multitask. So I feel it's more important to hire staff that, this is just a personal choice, that are really, really smart, are good learners and listeners, and can really work with the organization, rather than people who have a ton of experience who might come in with their own agenda. So if you have people that are good, that are willing to learn, that are really, really smart, can work with you, then that staff can stay with you, even in a crisis type of situation. So I think managing that is really important. I would also say delegating. You're not going to be able to do everything yourself, so delegating to the board, delegating to support staff, program staff, volunteers, anyone you can do that with is really kind of going to help you accomplish that. You're going to end up working long hours, just have to be okay with that. Like I said, prioritizing, you know, as a director, you're always going to be putting out fires, but making a list of your priorities for that day. Number one, bringing in money, take like an hour or two to make your calls, make your meetings, whatever you have to do to bring in the money, and then everything else comes after that, unless there's really an emergency. Sorry, let's see. I would also recommend using good volunteers. Volunteers are, they can be kind of tricky because they're not, you don't pay them, so they're not always very that reliable. But I still think good volunteers and interns can really help. You don't necessarily have to pay them, and if they're really dedicated to the organization, that can really, really help.
Natasha?
So I think Jen is right in terms of prioritization, in terms of also understanding that not everything is going to get done. And I think she gave a really good list of how you can manage getting things done, or how you need to prioritize and what have you, and what are some other avenues of getting support. I know that this past summer we had 3 interns come in, and I have no idea the work that they did. I have no idea how we would have gotten done without them. And so there's a great value to internships. And even now in this economy and sort of what's going on, there are a lot of people who are willing to come and intern or volunteer at your organization because, one, they have expertise in a particular area, but they're looking for an avenue of networking and connecting with the workforce. And so it's a really good opportunity for recent college grads, or people who may be transitioning, to come in and get an opportunity to really expose themselves, but also you're able to capitalize off the skills and experiences that they have. But I think the other, sort of larger thing to also thinking about how do you get things done is really looking at how do you target what it is that you want to get done. And so a lot of times there's so many roads, and there's so many things that you need to get done, but you have to sort of really take a step back, and sometimes that does take a bit of time to take a step back and really understand what is the work that you're trying to get through, and how do you then best manage it in the sense of just as a project, or even identifying individuals, whether they're board members, volunteers, interns, internal staff, and how do you actually really begin to take the skills of people who may already be in your staff or volunteers, and take that to the next level to work on getting those other things that you'd like to have happen. So I think it's a combination. It's really, taking things, juggling it, shuffling it here, moving that piece here, but I think it's also being able to have a really good understanding of the direction that you want to go towards, and then really mapping out, taking a path and figuring out how to make that happen. You're going to have crisis, you're going to need funding, those are just things that are going to happen, but how do you actually really take a moment and give yourselves a 30, 60, 90 year plan, so that you're always have that on your dashboard of things that you need to get through, so that you don't get yourself too clouded with the day-to-day. And I think that's one of the things that happens, is you really get clouded with the day-to-day, and you don't give yourself enough time to really look at your short-term, mid-term, and long-term planning, and those things change. And so I think that, coupled with managing the day-to-day, and also identifying like the best assets and talents of the people that you have in your world, whether it's staff or volunteers or interns, and how do you actually manage that as well. So, and yeah, a lot of long hours. That's another thing.
I have found that the key to our success at Black Star is actually recruiting good people, investing in those people, and managing those people. I started off as Mr. Basil knows, at the Chicago Public Schools as chief of staff, where I basically had about 45,000 people under me. So I left there and eventually landed at Black Star, where I had nobody under me. And so basically I had to rebuild my idea of an organization that started with just me. And so for the first couple of years, I actually made no money. And I don't know if there are any expiring executive directors or people who want to start foundations. You don't do it for the money. So, however, I wanted to do this thing, Black Star, and so for 2 years I did start hiring people out of college, which is a good source for young people who are idealistic and who are willing to work for cheap. And I started building an organization from nothing, basically. And you do a lot of that on your reputation, on your name, on your product. I thought, probably like almost everybody, that if I started this organization, everyone would see how wonderful it was, and then everyone would come to want to help me. Duh. that didn't happen, and it generally doesn't happen. And so I had an epiphany several years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, that if I really wanted to be successful in our not-for-profit organization, that I needed to run it like it was a business. And not saying that I'm heartless, or not saying that we have a triple net bottom line that we have to meet. But what we do have to do is be very, very professional, plan, have goals, have benchmarks, and that's how we accomplish what we accomplish. But the other thing I want to go back to is people. That's how you succeed. Not just the clients you serve, but the people you bring in to help serve those clients. And back I see our Director of Development just came in, our Director of Finance, John Davis, Kirsten Rocky, they're here. But they're the people who actually make the Black Star Project work. My job is to come to sessions like this and to speak. But they actually do the nuts and bolts of it. And they came into an organization, as I said, with ideals and with aspirations. And what I've been smart enough to do is to invest in them. And sometimes, even today, that means that rather than me making a really good salary, they make better salaries than what normally they would have made, because it's really not about the executive director, it's really about the organization. So that would be my key for helping to push organizations forward. And I just want to say it again, no matter how smart I am, I can only do so much. I'm pretty smart too, but I can only do so much. You've got to hire smart people. And so there's a joke in the office that Philip doesn't hire anybody who's not smarter than him. So everybody who works for us at Black Star, and I've been blessed. Dan knows that we've been blessed. We just met our chief financial guys here. We just met a payroll for about 110 people last week. I didn't sleep the night before, but we met the payroll the next day.
All right, next question is on funding, which is what you guys all wanted to hear about. I put this in the perspective that, we keep talking about in the current economic climate, but at the same time, there has been no effective plans for improving this, and there's no long-term goal in terms of where we want to go as an economy. So, as nonprofit people, how do we change our focus into fundraising for this climate, this economy, as though it